Hey, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive. I'm Dave Valente, joined as always by AJ in Tennessee. How you doing, AJ?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. How are
All
you?
right. Doing okay. Doing it's been a week. Been a very
Mm.
interesting and long and sad week as well. Dan from Maryland. Dan the Man Fishman. How you doing, Dan?
Ready and reporting for duty, sir.
There you go.
I said
Excellent.
duty.
All right. Um yeah, so yeah, like I said, it's been a long sad week. I um, heard sad news. I actually kind of let me give you the timeline. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of friends related to libertarian politics, and what was
What's
it,
up, Greg?
Tuesday night? I got a message from a friend named Ed Reagan who he had been kind of missing from the group for a little bit and came back and he said, "Hey guys, sorry I've been kind of quiet, but I'm going in for surgery tomorrow, open heart surgery to replace a valve." And it didn't sound like Ed. Ed would always come into a chat and he would, I mean, he would pick on somebody. Like he he was very brusque, very opinionated, he was a button pusher. Like that was kind of how Ed was. Ed was a really good guy. You knew where you stood with Ed. And to see this message, it just sounded kind of off it, and you could tell he was scared. But that was like the only message that he left in the chat that night. I just said, I'm pulling for you. Hope everything goes quickly, and let me know if you need anything from me following the surgery to help you out. And so the next day happens, and probably about 7 o'clock, I'm thinking, man, I wonder how Ed's doing. Hope he's doing all right. I was going to reach out to a couple of the other guys that were in the group that are closer to Ed, and another friend posted that we just saw in another group that Ed had passed away during his surgery. Um, Ed is Ed was a terrific dude. Just a quality, salt of the earth guy. Like I said, you knew where you stood with Ed. Ed had a code, and if you were cool with that code, he was the best friend you could have. He would fight for you. Um, if you were in opposition to him on his code, you knew it, and he made life hell on you. And there are people within the libertarian movement that he opposed stringently, and that was definitely the Mises Caucus. Michael Heiss, who is from Pennsylvania. Ed is from Pennsylvania. Ed was from Easton, Pennsylvania, although he had property, I believe, in both Wyoming and Montana as well. Um, but just a funny guy. Had a blast hanging out with Ed during the 2022 Pennsylvania convention. We immediately saw that it was turning into an absolute shit show. So we looked at each other about an hour in, and we're like, let's day drink. So we went across the street to the bar called the Bullfrog in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and proceeded to have a good afternoon in the face of some trying circumstances for a lot of our friends. Um, but Ed welcomed everybody into the table, and we had, by the end of the lunch hour, at the very least, we had the biggest table in the restaurant because we were just bringing people in. Yeah, Joe Solosky, who also knows Ed very well, authentic, very authentic, salt of the earth, just a good dude. But yeah, if you were on his opposite side, you knew it, and he held you to account. I've never seen someone do opposition research like Ed. Ed if you did something wrong, Ed would be at the bottom of it within the half hour. Like that's just how Ed was. So, yeah, I wish you could have joined us, Joe. I know that you were fighting the good fight over there at that convention, and unfortunately, it didn't go well for anybody involved, including, as we now know, that it really didn't go well for the Mises, even though they won and eventually took over the party. The state of the party has gone to shit. But um,
Unless you think that was their goal, in which case it's gone very well for them.
well, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think it struck me this week how this affected me. I mean, I really hung out with Ed like 2, maybe 3 times, in person. But in the age of the internet, in the age of social media, we hang out with a lot of people, not so much in person. We hang out with them online. We know their online persona, especially, but there are a few people that we do get to really make a connection with in social media. And his death really hit me. Like it was such a shock to the senses because Ed was a man's man. I mean, he was an avid hunter, outdoorsman, just a big gregarious guy. Um, Big Eagles fan. If you're into football, big Philadelphia sports fan, but particularly the Eagles, which I'm not a big fan of. That was kind of the source of our conflict will always be the Eagles fan piece, but because I'm a Giants fan, and he definitely had the advantage over me over the last few years. But uh, other than that, we got along really well, and
You
it
know, it's interesting to talk about it. And there's a friend of mine named Tracy Wallace, uh, is a life coach slash counselor slash whatever you want to call it. Also, just a good friend to me. And a phrase that she originated, and I quote all the time, is every tear that was shed in grief was birthed in joy. And that's the thing about it. It's funny. I was just watching The Hobbit, and those of you who remember the end of the Battle of Five Armies, when Tamriel is weeping over Keeley, Thranduil, who's been a dick for most of the movie. Uh,
Hey Drew,
yeah, he says
ahoy!
to, she says to him, "This is love. I don't want anything of it. Why does it hurt so much?" And he says to her, "Because it was real." There's that component to grief, uh, because it hurts. Because if you think about it, we've all had situations in which people near us, in terms of proximity, have passed, and we might have been sad, but we weren't devastated. We weren't crippled by it. It
Yeah,
was, oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. But it didn't wreck us because we didn't have enough joy out of the relationship to make it be that terrible. So when you get hit with that terrible part of grief, the thing that just wrecks you, and when you have it and you hit it, it's important to remember why you feel that strongly about it.
and I think
And go ahead.
well, I think to an extent there also is a major regret component to it that
Sure.
the things that were left unsaid, the feelings that were left unexpressed, the inability to have that conversation you were meaning to have with that person as you get to as you start to process the death, process that person that was in your life that you interacted with quite a bit in your life is no longer there. Like there's just you're just shouting into the ether now. Helps it also. I think there's a lot of the confronting your own mortality, confronting.
Well,
Uh,
I was gonna think about that. You're in a space where you've been thinking a lot about mortality
yeah,
recently, and to have this thing come up in that scenario, definitely that's gonna resonate,
yeah,
in the quite literal meaning of the word. There are strings inside your body that are going to vibrate in harmony with this grief and this passing out in the world. And one of the things that astonishes me about grief, and I spent a fair bit of time talking about this, is actually perfect episode for me. Thursday was my mother's yard site, which in Judaism is the anniversary of a person's death. And you say some things at the temple, say somebody's name. One of the things they say is people say that which is remembered is not really dead. And so we do all that stuff. There is a component of grief, and I lost my train of thought a little bit. There's a component of grief that is sad, reminding us of our own mortality and the things that we're missing. But there's also, a depth to it at times that is astonishing, because how could we have lived all our life knowing that grief was coming into it and still be taken so abruptly and so profoundly by it? And I will say that for me, when my mother died, that was the thing that was just unbelievable. I really didn't think that it would affect me the way that it did.
Was it
I
a sudden death, or was it a
no, we had
illness?
it. She had cancer for over a year.
Okay.
They found a lump. She felt a lump in her thigh, and it was weird. They said, "Okay, well, we're going to biopsy it, just to make sense." But we're pretty sure it's not cancer. And they're like, "Well, as it turns out, it is cancer." So, we're going to do things, and I'll tell a little bit more about the story, but we were very comfortable where she was. She was at Mass General, one of the greatest hospitals in the world. And they said, this is it's what's called a fatty sarcoma. It's not a typical cancer. It's a weird thing. It shows up, but it's only really in one area. And it's usually pretty well contained. And so they're going to treat it with a little chemo and then do some surgery. And so they did that, and they did the surgery. And so this thing I do regret at one point in time. I know how important early intervention is. And there was a point at which nothing had happened for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, and I called my mom, and I'm like, what's going on here? And she's like, I don't know. They're supposed to call me. I'm like, unfortunately, the way the healthcare system works, and even in the greatest hospital in the world and with really good insurance, sometimes you just have to be your own advocate. And so, as it turns out, the insurance company thought they were waiting on a call from the doctor. Doctor thought they were waiting on a call from the insurance company. And so we lost 2 weeks. Now, in the grand scheme of things, what's 2 weeks and a pretty early find? I don't know. But
Sure.
I will always think about that. Anyway, they did the surgery. The doctors thought they did a great job. They said the margins were all clean. It was great. And I mean, that in itself was pretty stressful. My mother at the time, 5 years ago, she was 79 years old. So, there's no casual surgery for a woman who's 79 years old.
Yeah.
Anesthetic is a crapshoot at best. But came out of it. We thought everything was good. And then 6 months later, cancer was back. It was in different places. We were lucky enough to, and some of you know, a friend of mine named Peter, and I'm not going to go into his name, but you see him on Facebook. Peter is an oncologist, works, again, in one of the most famous places in the world for cancer. And he gave me some great advice. She did a trial of Humira, which, let me just point out, is $10,000 a month. And some other stuff. But in the end, couldn't beat cancer. And so I was fortunate, and I've told this part of the story beforehand, but this was when I was applying for the job to be executive director of the Libertarian Party. And some sort of crazy stuff happened. Like I was supposed to get the job in January, and then some, I don't say administrative, political, whatever stuff happened, and it was delayed for 3 months. But what that meant was when my mother entered hospice in the middle of January, I was able to go down and live with her and my dad in their house for 10 weeks. And a word that I don't use often in my life. And that was a blessing. It was a real blessing in my life to spend that time with them, to
Yeah.
see my parents who, your kids, what you see of your parents, you see them at the worst because they're dealing with kids, right? Which is just so incredibly difficult, and money and life and all that stuff. And to get to see them be tender with each other was such a gift and informed my life. And the grief on her passing, even though, right, she was in a hospice for really 3 months. And then people who aren't familiar, there's sort of the passive dying stage where you stop taking your meds, they keep you comfortable, and you get worse. And then there's the active dying stage where your body shuts down. So we had plenty of time. And then, she sort of went into the active dying stage. And we had, just over 48 hours of that. And that was just hell.
Yeah.
No way around it.
Yeah. We
The
went through that
body.
with my wife's mother. I just,
Yep.
uh,
Nothing
that,
prepares you for it.
that, the active dying phase, the fact that she was, had hemolytic anemia and that she was, not able to get any blood and,
Yep.
that whole process was absolutely horrible. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, you get to a point, like, even if it is, a sudden thing or and my wife experienced it within like 4 months. Her father just dropped dead, like,
Wow.
just was there one minute, was gone the next minute. Uh, Her mother, who had been the sicker of the two, he was like a caregiver for her, just kind of withered away from there.
Right.
And so, she experienced it within 4 months, and really, it's hard to process grief when it comes in that varied and um in that time frame. And it's not just death that really can give you grief. I mean, it's, like we were talking about earlier, I've had it. I mean, 2024 is just been a
Yeah.
horrible year so far. Like,
Yep.
just every it feels like every week there's just something going on. I mean, Aaliyah, Aaliyah and I getting COVID, then Aaliyah getting sick and going into the hospital for better part of 2 months, getting her home finally, which was a great thing. But you know, hell, our car dies and have to replace the transmission on it. I mean, and then my friend Ed dying, and it's just like the hits keep on coming, and they pile up. And I wanted to do this episode because I wanted to talk about how to identify grief. Um, And it's not just, again, it's not just loss. It's not just someone dying that you can have grief over. You can
Sure.
have grief over illness. You can
The
have
ending. The
grief,
ending of the ending of a relationship.
yeah, grief over
Uh,
grief. I mean, I know people who have grieved the fact that you know like what I've had with the car, the transmission going, because that puts a financial challenge into your life, and you don't know how you're going to overcome that financial challenge. So not only does it give you stress, but it also gives you grief.
right.
You're worried, and you are concerned, and a lot of the things that you process with death grief, you process with other types of grief, other forms of grief, that you should be aware of. And there are some things that you should look for when something happens to you, and you just don't feel right after that episode happens. There are some things that you should look for. I went to the Mayo Clinic website and started studying their stuff on grief. So look for, of course, some of the bigger ones: sadness and depression. You're going to be sad after a loss or after big news like that. Um, if you are prone to bouts of depression, be extra careful to monitor yourself, be extra careful to take your medications, and make sure that you're, talking with your providers, if you may need a boost in your medications because of something that's happened that you know, there's an extra stressor in your life. Feeling
It,
numb,
it
shock, disbelief, that definitely, uh,
fall
I
back,
experienced all of that with Ed's passing.
yeah, and fall back on your community. I mean,
Mm,
this is what you've built a community for. And I want to say two things about that because on the one hand, it's entirely possible for people to feel a strong sense of grief over not having a community.
yeah,
You know, I have some friends who feel that way that, they are friendless in their lives. They know some people on Facebook, but in their personal lives, they don't know anybody. Again, my friend Tracy, I just posted this on Facebook. It's a beautiful thing she wrote. And it's a picture of her in her wedding dress from 30 years ago. And she hasn't been married to that man for a long time. But she talked about the things that she would say to herself 30 years ago in this wedding dress. And it starts off, says, I just want you to know, you look so beautiful right now. This moment, this happiness, everything about it is completely real. And you want to enjoy it and you want to share all this stuff. And there's all this stuff that's going to happen because life. But this moment right now, treasure everything about it. You're here. She gets into some emotional stuff. You're here with your daddy, and he's going to walk you down the aisle, and all these things that sad, sad to
yeah,
talk about that. But uh, a thing that I like to say is that as terrible as grief is, it's so much worse to not have anything to grieve over, to not have had
absolutely.
anything in your life that is so worthwhile that can bring you to tears just by thinking about it. I at the stage now in my life when there are certainly far more days behind than there are ahead. And I think about what does that mean? Just to the hospital, all that stuff. My Chemical Romance has a wonderful song that I recommend everybody should listen to called Cancer. And in it, it said, the hardest part of this is leaving you. And I think for a lot of us, we're not necessarily particularly concerned about our own mortality. I think a lot of times that, boy, what a relief it would be to not have to worry about shit anymore.
Sure.
Mm.
On the other hand, I don't want everybody to be sad. And I know the people be sad, and the people who, I feel like I take care of to some extent, I worry about them. But I want to read a poem if I can.
Yeah,
It's
go
very
for it.
short. It's called "Crossing the Bar" by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Sunset and evening star, and one clear call for me. And may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
Right on.
And that's sort of it's a plea for people to say, miss me, but don't grieve, because if I'm going to quote big sayings, I'm going to quote Gandalf. I will not say don't cry, for not all tears are shed in sadness. That's an important thing. Meaning, recognizing that part and embracing our humanity in grief is a big thing. And then the next step beyond that is to have the empathy to understand that everybody else goes through that. And that's the thing that does and can bring us together. at first, you know, the first time you lose a parent, and I don't know where you guys are with the state of your parents' health or the nature of your relationships with them, but there's sort of a club, an unfortunate club, with other people who have been through that stuff.
Yeah.
And the one thing about it that everybody has in common is I had no idea that's what it meant. I didn't know it was going to be like that, even
I,
though I heard all that stuff. Go ahead, Dave.
I've lost both. I lost my dad when I was 16. Watched him wither from cancer. Um, and my mom passed away in 2014, no, 2013, December 2013. She, my mom was an interesting person. So
Yeah.
she was a smoker, a lifelong smoker. She had COPD. She was on oxygen, um, but she still smoked. And I thought the way that she was going to go was that I'm just going to get a call that she blew herself up. Like, she had the oxygen machine, and that she was just lit a cigarette at the wrong time, and it just blew up. She ended up succumbing to the COPD eventually, and it was just I couldn't get home in time to see her. I called her on her birthday, which is usually her birthday fell on Thanksgiving, November 24th. I called her on November 24th, and she was very incoherent. And she was supposed to go have Thanksgiving dinner with my sister, but kind of begged off of that. And immediately I called Kara, who was hosting a large Thanksgiving dinner. I said, "Hey, I just talked to mom. She's not doing well. She's got to,
Yep.
somebody needs to go check on her." And she went in the hospital. She was put on. She was intubated a few times, and eventually said no, no more. And she passed away the day before I was able to get out there.
Tough.
But yeah, it was very tough. Not actually getting to
Sure.
be there and be in her presence and say goodbye like that. Um, the worst thing is that the last time I talked to her was I was at work. I was training people
Yeah.
to do jobs while I was going to be gone for this leave, and um, she called me after they'd taken her off the breathing tube for the last
Right.
time, and she sounded good. She sounded strong, but eventually, her oxygen levels just
Right.
dropped, and she passed away that afternoon. But
Wow.
that just sucks to talk to
Yep.
your loved one for the last time at work, and
Yep.
knowing that you were so close to getting to see them uh, at least one last time.
Right.
And but yeah, I've lost both parents, and
Talk about like the aftermath, because for me the thing that was just shocking was it's 5 years now,
yeah.
but at least for 3 years I was just like I felt like my heart was bruised and it was tender, and if you poked it
Mhm.
it still hurt.
Oh, yeah.
I was astonished at that.
For mom, it wasn't so much, and it's not that I didn't have a good relationship with my mom. There were some challenges with my mom, of course, but um, the I think more of the fact that when my dad passed away, I was 16, just coming into my own, and
Right.
losing that at that point in my life. I mean, he went from just this full gregarious guy that was full of life in May of 1990 or 1989 to dead in September.
Wow.
Um, you know, yes, we were built up to the his passing with the cancer, but it still was just an absolute shock. The amount of time that it happened in. That one, yes, for years afterwards. Will always tell people when somebody passes away that it doesn't get easy, but
Yeah.
it gets easier. Like
Yeah.
the idea that somebody's passed away, it's hard to even when I think about dad today, I still get very emotional about it, that
Sure.
that man
Sure.
was taken out of my life by
Yeah. I mean,
a
the
shitty
impact
thief.
of right losing your dad so young, I'm sure it affected your family
Oh,
as
yeah.
well, and sort of
The
all the
family
other
fell
stuff.
apart for a while. Absolutely fell apart,
Yeah,
for
and
a
then
while.
there's the whole thing of just sort of the complicated nature of relationship between fathers and sons. You know, my dad, fortunately, is still alive and very healthy. But, you know, I sort of think of the nature of our relationship and sort of, even though it's not true, the sadness I feel of having disappointed him, you know, at various points in time, just
Yeah.
shit that I've done and stuff like that. And, you know, those things are, that's pre grief. And that's what we were talking about a little bit too.
Anticipatory, yeah.
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 When you sort of know, you know that you're going to be super sad from grief.
Hmm.
And so, you know, the thing that I was saying before about getting the chance to spend that time with my mom and my dad, uh, you know, in a period of need for them, that was awesome. It was lucky.
You know, a
Now
lot,
I live so far away.
yeah.
Um, I don't get to see them that often. I don't see my dad
I
that often.
I live with a lot of grief because I don't like hospitals at all. I hate
Yep.
hospitals. Um, and it was very hard for me to see my dad in the hospital. It was hard for me to go see him when he was in the hospital because I was actively watching him wither away into nothing. He was like a 250-pound guy, and by the time he
Yep.
passed away, he was under 100, not under 100 pounds, but he was under 200 pounds.
Wow.
And it would basically, essentially, it was all fluids from the cancer eating
Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah.
his organs. I mean, he was originally diagnosed with colon cancer, was supposed to get
Hmm.
surgery. Day before the surgery happened, they did a full torso X-ray and found 27 cancers in his lungs.
Wow.
They went to chemo and it didn't work, and he was, immediately terminal because he was, already metastasized to other things. We think it ended up going into his brain because he did have severe cognitive abilities at some points um, within his dying process. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was just cancer is. I mean, cancer can linger for years, and cancer can you know
Yeah.
it's gone, and uh, the luck of the draw is that you one identified early, and two that it is a slow moving disease.
Yep.
If you identify it late and it's fast moving, there really is nothing you can do. Um, but yeah, it was the fact that I didn't spend enough time with my dad in hospital was always going to be a regret for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was I was going through my stuff. Like I was going through the pre grief. Like I couldn't handle it. And this time, like, being with Aaliyah in the hospital for so long, it was so hard for me to sit there in the hospital that, I do think that I've got some
Right.
kinds of, like ADHD and neuro stuff that the beeps and the sirens and that just drove me nuts the whole time. And the more that they beeped, the more I got anxious and just,
Hmm.
wanted to leave, but I couldn't because, that's my wife right there. I can't leave her. Um, but until we were kind of forced apart, but it was such a difficult thing. I tried to be there from time
Sure.
the floor open until they make you go home at 7 o'clock, which is, I think hospitals are starting to do that they make, unless you're in a terminal situation, or a bad accident type deal, they will
Hmm.
make families leave now, which I think is good for both the patient and the
Yeah.
families for rest. But
Yeah.
Hmm.
let me go through some of these other signs of grief so that you recognize when you're going through grief what you're feeling, and talk about how to deal with those things. So we talked about feeling numb, shock, disbelief. I felt all that with Ed when he passed, and I heard that he had passed. Tiredness. This kind of goes hand in hand with the whole depression thing. 'Cause depression, a lot of people get really tired. Sleep a ton when they're depressed, motivation and things like that. So if you find yourself sleeping a lot more, just check yourself, check on keep checking on yourself to say, how am I feeling? How is what I'm going through right now normal, and how should I deal with it? Loss of
Yeah.
appetite, difficulty concentrating, being angry and irritable for seemingly no reason. Even feeling relieved. Some people feel guilty for feeling relieved at when somebody passes, or or relationship ends. God, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
That, you know, they're no longer suffering, or I'm no longer suffering because I'm out of it. But then, you know, you feel guilty because you have that emotion. It's quite normal to have that emotion. And then feeling frightened, helpless, or lonely. Absolutely, especially if it's, you know, a loved one that passes, a very close loved one that you either rely on or uh, interact with on the daily, um, or a friend or relationship that ends for you. Just recognize that those are signs of grief, and that's what you're going for. And you want to have a plan to process that grief when you do experience it. So, best thing you can do, like what we're doing right now, talk with somebody.
Right.
A-
And
And,
like I see Joe posting here too about depression for 3 weeks after his mom
yeah,
passed. Yeah. I mean, it's and it can get to everybody. I was a person who, never I would never have said I was a person who suffered from depression. I don't really suffer from clinical depression, but I was super sad. And it affected all sorts of things that I was doing in my life. It's
yeah.
just,
Mm.
the nature of that thing.
And
So go ahead.
and guilt's huge too. Like you feel guilty for, like, after someone passes or after you lose a relationship, you feel guilty for going out and doing something for the first time afterwards. Like you feel like, okay, well, I'm enjoying my life, and the person that I love is gone. How can I
Oh,
enjoy?
Right.
How can I
that
enjoy?
has a
You have to move on, and you know, I'm not saying it as a callous way. You have to continue because you know, the sun rises every day,
Yep.
and don't let their death kill you. Don't let the end of your relationship kill you, remove you, and make you an unlovable person because um, these things happen. And talking to people helps, definitely. I know some people are very reticent about reaching out. That they don't. They're, you know, if you're an introvert and you don't like, there's always that one person you can talk to. And if you don't have that person in your life, reach out to me. I mean, hell, I'll be happy to talk to you. And I'm a bit of an introvert when it comes to, you know, talking to people. I don't, you know, it's funny because I host 2 shows and do this every week, and but you know, I'm very introverted when it comes to, you know, public stuff. So I get it, but I also want to help people. I want people to be okay with coming to somebody, and if you need somebody to come to, feel free to reach out to me. Um, it says getting back into a routine or everyday activities, like we were talking about. Guilt may make you feel like you shouldn't, but you have to, because the earlier you can get back into a routine and do things,
Right.
uh, the better. Now, I will say that if you are suffering from depression and actually getting into a clinical state, then you do need to talk with a professional, and don't, you know, don't force yourself to go do 80 hours of work a week. Like don't hide yourself in the routine. Don't hide yourself, uh, you know, to avoid the feelings that you're feeling. Have the feelings, but try and get back into your normal routine as quickly as possible so that you can feel some sense of normalcy. It says accept emotional and practical support from others. You know, talking with people is great. People will come to you. You know, the simple act of, you know, after somebody passes away and somebody cooks you a home cooked meal.
Yep.
I mean, that's a big thing in the South. Like, you know, when Aaliyah's mom and dad passed away, there was, I mean, you could eat for days. Like, people were just cooking and bringing stuff, and that's, you know, that little simple act of love is so important, and you don't, you know, you're like, you know, stuffing your face and that thing, but, I
Yeah.
mean, just not having to worry about cooking and eating, you know, fast food from a fast food restaurant is such a relief.
A friend of mine, Laura Fawcett, I hope she's listening to the show, probably not. But uh, her husband died from essentially he drank himself to death. It was liver failure,
Mm.
and it was one of those things of they had to. She had to deal with the fact that like a lot of the things that she thought, oh, he was so sweet, he would go out and like I'd say, oh, I'm craving this food, and he's like, oh, I'll go out and get it right now, but really he was going out and drinking, and then coming back and sort of understanding all that stuff and all these years that he kept hiding his drinking because he's a serious alcoholic.
Yeah.
Serious alcoholics are good at that. Couldn't get onto the transplant list because wasn't sober or wasn't sober enough, and so when he died, uh, she was racked with grief. She did a couple of things that we talked about, was sort of reaching out to people, including just reaching out on the internet as much as anything else, which that's a valid thing. Don't make it your only thing,
Yeah.
but it's a valid thing. And so I sent her I sent her a giant box of chips, like the Lay's 96 pack with all the different types of potato chips in there. And then what was the other thing I sent? I sent another food thing. And like years later, she's like, Dan, that was so critical to me because I just wasn't eating. Pop Tarts. And I sent her Pop Tarts, which, Pop Tarts. She talked about the fact, she's like, yeah, she's like, it was amazing. And knowing that we're all going to be there, I'm a karma guy. And so I want to help everybody else out in their grief because I know I'm going to need it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So AJ, as our resident medical expert,
Ugh.
what advice do you give on grief and how to handle it?
Don't do it alone. I'm really bad for shutting myself off and like alphabetizing the kitchen or like redoing the backsplash or finding a project to put that energy into because I don't like my dad died when I was 5. And so I've spent like 35 years scared to death that, my mom's gonna die and I've carried around that. And it doesn't always come out as sadness. It comes out as anger. And I can't be angry. I'm a mom. I'm a nurse. I've got stuff to do. That's not productive. So I put it towards a project, which is absolutely the worst thing to do. So don't be like me. Absolutely do not throw yourself into anything you wouldn't normally want to do. Like people want to talk about, delivering food and stuff like that. As far as the grieving person goes, you're grieving. Let people take care of you. Let people take care of you. Let them bring you food. Let them do your laundry. Let them scrub your tub. Like, let them do these things because it will help. No, it doesn't really get easier. It gets different each day. It's like that blister that slowly turns into a callus, like your shoe never feels the same, but it's okay. It's getting better. It's getting tougher.
Yeah.
And you're surviving it. Um, uh, the different types of loss, I'm a big proponent of celebrating divorces and celebrating the ends of relationships because you are celebrating you are moving on. You are doing this. Um, that's not as easy to do with deaths. My family, because there's just been a lot of us, and it's a family of widows, so there's been a lot of husbands died. We're not going to discuss that, but what I will say is we've learned to laugh, and we are some of the most morbid motherfuckers. Like it is just, it is awful. And then some of us, most of us work in the medical field, and then there's, we had like some law enforcement involvement for a while. Do whatever you do, whatever your process is. Like Joe said, his wife is a therapist. It's all normal. Whatever your process is,
Yeah.
it helps to be around people that have similar processes. Because if you're somebody that laughs at funerals, probably not best to hang around the people that this is a sacred thing. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But
But
I
no,
will tell you,
like I said, I've been going to, my dad passed when I was 5. I decorated his gravestone today. Now, when Charlie was little, we would go to the cemetery to do flowers, and it was like, what is this place? And it was like, this is where memory rocks are kept. Because all I could think is 5 and 6-year-old me at my dad's funeral, just kind of glancing over my shoulder for zombies. And I didn't want I didn't want my kids to have that problem. So I was like, it's just memory stone. See, it's got their name on it, and it's pretty. It's got the decorations, and that I mean, it was some hippy dippy crap, but it worked, and it didn't make cemetery scary because I think the unknown is part of the biggest problem that we have grieving because we have no clue. We
Yep.
know what happened right in front of us. That's it. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and he was in his 90s when he passed away. And he
There's
was in the hospital room, and he was giving a sermon on loving each other from the bed. And I hadn't heard this one before, and I'd heard him preach lots. But he was talking about, and we're going to have to figure out a way to see beyond each other's flaws and to love each other anyway. And I think I'm done. And that was kind of his last coherent moment. And it was just, I will never know. Who was he actually talking to? You
yeah,
know, and I've been with hospice patients, and there are some that it's just a piece. And I follow, hospice nurses on Instagram
yes,
because
definitely
they
follow.
really do.
yeah.
They have this insight that you can't get any other way. You cannot get the insight that you get from the deathbed
Yep.
Yeah,
from anywhere else.
Yep.
yeah. There's
You never hear about anybody saying, "Oh, I regret, I didn't work 60 hours a week." You never hear anybody say, "Oh, well, I didn't have that pretty red car," or whatever the crap. They wish that they'd spent more time with their families.
Yep.
They wish that they had done better for the people that they loved. So if someone is grieving, yeah, reach out to them, and you will have to reach out to them.
Yeah.
Saying, "Hey, I'm here if you need me." No, bother, show up. Just
Right.
show up if you can show up. Um, and just,
Yep.
you know,
I will say during the whole episode with Aaliyah being in the hospital, I had several people reach out to me during the whole episode, and I thank every one of them for doing so because it was. I mean, it really does when you live in a city where you don't have a ton of family, um, and something like this happens, you do feel like you're on an island.
Yep.
And I know that Aaliyah was in a much worse shape than I was, but it felt like you know, when does the world start to get normal? No, of course, I should know that there's nothing normal about this world that we live in today. Like, there's just not a damn thing that's normal.
And,
Um,
and and the other thing about it is that it's really worth talking about the fact that as you get older, it doesn't get better.
no,
There's more grief ahead. There's more trouble in your personal lives and stuff like that, which makes it even more important that you build relationships and spend as much time as you can on love.
yeah,
I have to quickly comment on AJ's thing about cemeteries being scary. Uh, I always thought cemeteries were an incredibly popular place to be because people were just dying to get in there.
oh.
Sorry, couldn't
see,
resist it. Could not
my
resist
dad
it.
died when I was 5, so the dad jokes, like, I just didn't have as easy access to them. Um, I think he would have. He probably would have laughed if he had realized because, like I was 5, and it's a small town, so the family actually was associated with the funeral home we were at, so I was comfortable.
Yeah,
So it wasn't just the cemetery that creeped me out. I mean, I got away from the adults because they're busy doing whatever adults do at funerals, and I snuck off into the room with all the caskets, but I'm still short, so I can't see that there's not a body in every. It's the sales room. Like I literally went into the sales room, but I ran out screaming because I was like, "Oh, there's dead people everywhere." No, there's not dead people everywhere. My Uncle Jack took me back in there and showed me it's okay. So fast forward like 30 years, and my stepfather dies, and it's around Christmas. It's around the same time. This was like 2 years ago, and I walked into that room as an adult. I was like, life is fucking weird. Life is so strange sometimes.
Yeah.
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 You know, and it's not just people that we know in our lives. Like I've had deaths on Facebook that have, rocked me to my core. I met Mark Allen Feldman, Dr. Feldman,
Yeah.
at the 2016 convention, and then like what 2 to 3 weeks after the convention, he's dead. He dropped dead in a hotel room. Um, that just rock you like what? Like this dude that just dropped like one of the most awesome moments at a libertarian national convention ever is gone, like just gone in a moment's notice. There's a guy named Ricky Clayton Jr. that was on Facebook for years, and he was just a jokester. Like he put jokes on. Yeah, Dr. Feldman had to. Yeah, I remember that. Right after he was like essentially after he dropped that massive rap at the 2016 convention, Drew fell out, and Dr. Feldman had to revive him. Um, it was he was such a great guy, and then all of a sudden he's gone. Like it's just amazing. Um,
And so then the one other thing I want to talk about too, though, is that there is a nice tie into, I think, a liberty topic here, in that a lot of the grief and a lot of the difficulty is we get to see, we have to see the suffering of
mhm,
our loved ones at times. And I know for my mom, when she felt like she was at the end, she wanted to pursue a death with dignity option, but there is nothing in Massachusetts.
yeah,
There's hospice, and they'll make you comfortable. But if she could have, said, "This is the day, and I'd like to have you all here," and then I'll flip a switch.
yeah.
That would have been her choice, and I think it would have been easier for us uh, as well as for her.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times when people get close to the end, they don't have the ability to communicate.
Yeah,
Like my dad, there, like I said, when he thought that the cancer had gone to his brain, there were a couple weeks before he passed that he just couldn't communicate. There was like a week after that they call it the rally in the hospice industry. There's
yeah,
the rally that you think, oh, he might get better. Like he's done so well this week. It was right around my parents' 25th anniversary
yep.
that he got better for, and
And
then
was he
the next week he was gone, and and but if you are in that position, he lost like 3 weeks of his final 4 weeks where he couldn't communicate, and it could have been very much that the final 4 weeks he wouldn't have been able to communicate. You being able to control that aspect of your life, the end of your life, um, you know, I I get the ethical concerns, I get all that stuff, um, as long as it is the choosing, the consent of the person going through it, and there is some guardrails. I mean, I know that there are some people who complain about how Europe that if somebody is terminally depressed, that they can request, and it's
I mean,
happened. I get it, but
yes, yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's there's so many other things around there that in that case, there can be somebody who advocates and say, no, this person is depressed.
yeah,
They're not ready for that right now. It's reasonable to say, find some people who will consent to let this happen. Let's have
yeah,
some safeguards around there, but it doesn't mean that everybody else should be forced to suffer because of it.
yeah,
I think there are some states with some reasonable laws. Colorado, where AJ is moving, has a pretty good death with dignity law. Um, Other
Yeah.
places. It just needs to become a standard
Yeah.
because,
Honestly, it needs to be part of hospice. We
yeah,
will keep you comfortable for as long as you want to be comfortable. We will do our very best. And when you're at this point, like this is what we will do, it needs to be something that is completely normalized. People don't
Yeah.
actually have to suffer if they choose not to. Time Enough for Love by Robert Heinlein, like,
yeah,
just threw this at me as a teenager. Everyone should have the right to
Yes.
die.
yep,
Um, yes, of course, there has to be safeguards because we're humans, but eh, mostly I think that if there was more empathy from the medical community, if it was less about making money, if it was more about treating the entire human, not just,
well, and so
yeah,
let's talk about that little thing too, because for sure in hospice, and I don't think it was just us uh, that had the scenario, but there's a point in time which I'm like, well, they've given us an enormous amount of morphine.
hmm
And so I had to have a conversation with my dad. I said, okay, Dad, I don't know what you're thinking, what you might be thinking, and we can have this conversation in person, but this is signal. And if we want to have, medical conversations about how much morphine is in the house and stuff like that, let's do all that over signal. Because I don't think in Massachusetts anybody's going to care. But, if I can see mom saying that's what she wants, and
Uh, Doug Stanhope has a bit about his mom passing.
yeah,
It's pretty funny. I mean, of course, death is not always a funny subject, but Doug Stanhope is kind of a genius. And he talked about how his mom was dying, and um, she wanted to go out on her own terms. So her doctor prescribed to her basically her entire medication for a month, and said, "I can't tell you how to do it, but if I was going to do it, this is how I would do it." So she took like all of her pain meds at once. And while she was slipping in and out of consciousness, it's probably not it's not a neater, good way to go, I don't think. But she, as she's slipping in and out of consciousness, they take her credit card, and they start charging stuff on like air on Sky Mall because she's gonna pass away. He was like,
exactly.
I've waited for like 8 years to tell this story because I want to make sure that the statute of limitations has expired for
Yeah,
credit card fraud. And he was like, "Yep, 7 years in Arizona." So I'm telling you this story now.
ooh,
But yeah, there's ways to do it, but I'd rather have it be a medically professionally
yeah,
monitored and perfected way to do it.
yeah. No,
well, there needs to be a perfected way, period. I mean, because you certainly don't want your loved ones to go through anything that
right.
capital
Yeah,
punishment. I mean, because those
Well,
have
yeah,
been botched and it has been terrible. I would want, here's my thing. If a medical professional is involved, they could actually do it the exact right dose for that weight, and they could prevent any further suffering, just going to sleep or however it would be. Because I don't think I would want morphine because it suppresses your respiratory
yeah,
ability, and I'm asthmatic, and that scares me. Like, I wouldn't want to be awake for that. So hopefully they would give me enough, like, I don't know, Ativan or something to kind of curb that. Hospice is such a weird, like, balance
yeah.
with the medications because you don't
yeah,
want anyone to be scared and you don't want them to be in pain. And those are really the goals. Like, that's kind of it. Um, and I Yeah, I'm with you. I would want a medical professional involved, but also I would want somebody that's not necessarily not corruptible. And I don't know that that exists. Just,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's a lot of power.
There
Um,
are other things, and I just want to say, as we are on YouTube, YouTube is especially famous for banning talks of self harm or
Sure.
that sort of thing. But I will
so it's
say that that people can look at an exit bag and find another way that people talk about ways to do things. There are inert gases that are very effective in this manner, and you just and you know people. There've been a couple of cases where people have done them in a manner that they didn't quite complete because it's a little bit complicated. You go unconscious almost immediately, but then you have to inhale the inert gas for quite a while, and their unconscious body fell over and they revived. But they were able to say, no, it was like a light turned off. And that was it. There was no pain or suffering or anything like that. And so, there's plenty of methods out there. Although I will say, I've always wondered why uh, we don't use heroin in executions. I mean, Lord knows they capture plenty of it anyway. Uh, and
I don't
by
want to
all
make it
accounts,
easier for the state to execute people, though.
no, I don't want to
I
say
mean,
that. Anybody. Sure, I agree with that 100%.
but
But
yeah, I mean, I get your point. Like, there are plenty of things that they
that,
could use. Like, how much fentanyl do we get off the streets? You know,
yeah, exactly. Did you see Little Miss Sunshine?
I did not.
Oh, dude, put it on your list.
Okay,
You guys are probably going to be watching a fair bit of movies, resting around the house and stuff. Please put Little Miss Sunshine on your list and let's talk about it afterwards.
all right.
I don't want to ruin it for you. Um,
So, well, go ahead and we'll
well,
wrap this
I was
up.
just going to say, I think we're getting close to wrapping
Yeah,
this issue. Uh, I too, I wasn't close friends with Ed, but we certainly commented on each other's Facebook stuff a long
oh
time,
yeah,
and we shared a lot of activities in common. Uh,
sure.
and he was absolutely a good dude who had a capacity to rub some people the wrong way. Um,
Oh God,
however,
Coma. I remember seeing that
uh,
movie, Coma. Oh,
I
that,
am glad to have known him, and I definitely grieve at his passing.
yeah. Like I said, Ed is a good dude. Ed was Ed. Like,
Yep.
a lot of people said that he lived by a code, and he did. He lived by a code, and if you didn't know Ed and you ran afoul of the code, you knew it. Um, but Ed was a good dude. He was salt. Like I've said several salt of the earth, just a good person. Um, definitely a guy that would give you the shirt off his back. Just you know, um, it was devastating to hear of his passing in the way it happened, especially the on the surgical table. Um, but I'm going to miss him. But I do know that, and I'm not going to get into the religious debate. I don't know what happens afterwards, but if there is an afterlife, if there is beyond something beyond this, I know I'm going to hang out with Ed. I'll see him on the other side because that's somebody you will look up when you go on the other side. Because
Just not on Sundays.
yeah, I'll go to the Eagles tailgate in the sky, but yeah, I will
Exactly.
definitely hang out with Ed because just a good person. And if there's nothing else on the other side, then we just lost somebody that was pointless to lose him. So, but I'm hoping that there is something on the other side and where our paths can cross again. So I did put up in the because we have been talking about very heavy subjects that if you are feeling if you, the depression things get too much for you and you feel like you need to talk to somebody that things are spinning out of control, there is the suicide hotline or self harm hotline. Uh, 988. It's very simple. Um, give it a call. People 24/7 will help you. And if you're having issues and you're like, "Oh, I see Dave's up," send me a message. Hey, Dave, I'm having some issues. Can you help me? Can I call you? Absolutely. I want to help you and make sure that you're you're taken care of. So, but anyway,
I
oh,
want to say something real quick.
sure,
Can confirm Dave actually does answer.
I do sometimes.
If you say, I need help, he
Yes,
absolutely answers.
that
So,
you say I need help. I need help. I
mhm.
am definitely answering. Um, but yeah, just reach out to me. Reach out to somebody. You don't have to. You're not alone. You don't have to go through things alone. Um, and there's lots of people, lots of resources to help you. All right, so let's talk about the news of the week. Biggest news of the week. There are two massive stories that have come out. We touched on last week, and I think uh, to tie the bow on this one, I think I'm hoping a lot of people, the royal watchers in Britain and the United States, feel like assholes right now. After Princess Kate, all the controversies about doctored photos, and I looked at the doctored photos that they talked about, and I like nothing in those doctored photos really matters. Like, why are we talking about? Okay, so she blurred something here, or whoever it was that within the royal palace did it, blurred something here, blurred something there. It wasn't like an AI photo with like 18 fingers on the hand. I
Right.
That's
and
true.
then, to harass this poor woman and,
Well,
don't
and
make
in many
me defend the royal family because again, the events of
well,
1775 through 1783 mean I don't have to give a shit about the royal family, but
but
I
let's
give a shit
circle
about
back around
humanity.
to grief and what we're talking about. Everybody knows the 5 steps of grief, right? And the
Hmm.
first step is denial. Okay, Kate posting this picture to some extent is denial, right? It's her saying, "Oh, we're happy, we're a family, we're all going to be fine," stuff like that. And here's a fascinating thing for everybody to think about: when you meet somebody else who starts going through those steps of grief, your job is not to bring them past denial. Your job is not to say, "Well, you're just in denial about it," et cetera, et cetera,
Yeah,
because that is cold, in-hearted, and sensitive.
yeah,
And so, here we are, all of us with Kate suffering along the way. We don't have to. We don't have to be the ones who say, "Oh, this is disaster happening in the royal family," or anything like that.
Mm.
We shouldn't care about the royal family. I agree with Dave on that, but we
but
should
I
care
care about
about
humanity. I care about humanity.
exactly what I was going to say. Those exact words.
Yeah. Like, someone is suffering and you're
Mhm.
hounding them because they doctored a photo. And I will tell you that a majority of the people that are hounding her about doctoring her photos have Instagram
Filters.
photos, have TikToks with filters all over them. We don't know what they look like actually because they are so filtered up. Um,
And may never.
yeah, yeah, may never.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
Well, she had okay, she had an abdominal surgery. That's what we know. We don't know any specifics
what?
on that, and that's
Yeah,
okay because we don't need to.
no,
Um, but she was recovering from that. Put the photo out. Everybody started da, 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 da. And the whole
what's up,
reason,
Casper? Hey, Abby.
and this is the saddest part of this. The whole reason that she hadn't announced anything yet is they were waiting for their kids to be out of school so that they could, like, as a family, kind of deal with this.
Yeah.
I remember being little enough that, my dad was sick with cancer for a year before he passed away. And yeah, kids are weird. Kids are really weird when you've got a
Yeah,
sick parent. Kids are weird when you've got a dead parent too. And they already have the grandfather with cancer for that. Like, it is the most normal, common thing that any of us would
yeah,
think. And
yeah,
I
absolutely.
have cancer. I am going to worry most about telling my boys. I'm going to
Yep.
worry most about them. She's just being a mom, and
Yeah,
it's just rough.
I
It's
I
so
don't
rough.
I don't fault her for anything that she's done the last uh, to me the great sins of her doctoring a photo mean nothing like
Right.
that not even just even though she hadn't been
Who cares?
caught with can, like, yeah, who gives a shit? Like,
I'm sorry, but out of all the doctored photos that we see daily, this is the one that matters.
yeah,
This one of a woman with 3 kids, because that's really all it is. Because what power does the royal family actually have in the big scheme of things? They are titles.
yeah,
They get to spend a lot of money, but in the big scheme of things, she's a mom with
yeah.
a husband that is eventually going to have a really important title.
And
It's just
I
crazy.
love NASA. I love space photos, but 100% of those are doctored because the JWST films in they don't take a Polaroid and slap it out like this and give you a picture. It's infrared and it's other stuff that I don't even understand, and they've got to blend it together. And a guy at NASA puts colors on it and makes it look pretty.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Things are doctored. Everything is doctored. Like we've got the ability to do it. Why not do it? So I
Yep.
can't blame a mom wanting to make her Easter or Mother's Day picture look perfect. Um, you know, if my mom could had that ability back in the day, there probably would have been a lot better pictures of us. So,
For real.
I don't know. I really hope that, but we've seen it hundreds of times before that something's happened with the royal family and the behavior of the press in Britain and here doesn't change because hell, we'll run Diana into a center pole of a underpass. We'll
Mhm.
hound people. I mean, I remember how they treated Diana, where they were just like bleating at her like sheep because they called her Ma. They were like, "Ah, Ma," like trying to get her to look at the camera so they could take a picture of her and just harassing her and harassing her family.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that the thing with Harry is that he actually feels like he's running towards it and then saying, "Don't take pictures of me." I'll grant you that, but
It's yeah, it's a different scenario.
yeah,
They're
it's a
they're
different
doing
scenario.
different
But
things.
I also get why Harry is so
Apparently, he's fucked in
anti-press.
the head. I mean, he
Well,
still has
yeah.
grief.
You watch, if you want to know why Harry is the way Harry is, watch him during the funeral procession for his mother.
Yeah,
That kid was not there, but they made him trot out and walk down the street behind the funeral carriage for
yep,
however long it was. Um, and then greet people afterwards, like, "Thanks for coming out. Hey, thank you for," like, how do you do that to a kid that's like, what, 9 years old at that time? And the like I said, don't make me defend the royal family because the royal family is all sorts of effed up, even though they're
Yes.
my technically my relatives. They're all levels of messed up.
yep.
Um, but embrace the humanity.
I agree.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the giant false flag operation in Russia?
Oh, wow. What is uh what, Friday night? No, yeah, it was Friday night. In a suburb of Moscow, Crocus, I think is the name of it. Uh 4 Tajikistani terrorists broke into the concert hall with guns. They said it was automatic. It sounded like semi-automatic weapons to me,
I
the
agree.
way that burst of fire was.
Yep,
Um, Molotov cocktails. They killed, at this point, the number I think is like 137, but I think it's going to go way higher than that, probably into the 200s. Um, Burned down the theater and the city hall, which I think was attached to it. Um, and yeah, so they caught these guys. Now Vladimir Putin is, immediately the United States was going like it's ISIS, and ISIS, to their credit, says, yeah, it's us. And they they capture 4 dudes. I
yep,
think they've arrested 11 people in total, but the 4 people that did it, they trouted them out in front of the press today, and uh, they've been through it. I will tell you that right now, and if they did do this, then yeah, richly deserved for a lot of the stuff that they've been through. But Yeah, apparently one of the guys had his ear cut off and fed to him.
Wow.
And the other guys were just sort of beaten in the face. I mean, their faces are all swollen and cut up.
That's so
One
crazy.
guy was in a hospital gown and in a wheelchair. So
Hmm.
yeah, Putin's trying to pin this on Ukraine
Yeah,
because, of
exactly.
course, yeah.
Well, so first of all, I will tell you, I think it could be the Russians themselves who did it.
Oh yeah.
I think that there's a reasonable chance that
Oh
the
no. Yeah,
Russians,
he's way like Putin.
yeah,
There is.
he would totally kill 150 people to get claim a moral reason to keep fighting the Ukraine or do worse things on them.
Well, I mean,
I think that unfortunately there's going to be a big uh, escalation in the war.
oh, there already has been.
Well, I think over
Yeah.
the next period,
Yeah.
as we're getting into fighting season again, um,
Yeah.
and that's going to be unfortunate.
No, there is
Hopefully,
definitely going to be an escalation. He's, he just got reelected with like 87, and yeah, I
exactly.
get it, 87% of the vote. When your choice is Putin or Putin,
Or
because I
jail.
really like him, or I'm going to just, I'd like to just, take a nice vacation to a nice prison island in the Siberian
Exactly.
tundra. Um, Yeah, no, I think with Vladimir Putin, he's definitely going to use this as justification for, and he's already done it. He's already attacking electric infrastructure. Um,
Yeah.
the interesting thing was, hearing Emmanuel Macron talking about actually sending troops,
Yeah.
um, which
I
would
mean,
definitely
it's
be a major escalation into the conflict. And Putin predictably responded with, "We'll make shit glow."
yeah.
And
I
I don't
mean,
know. There's no good that comes out of any of this.
right. I do think that. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I think there's going to be a major escalation, and I don't know what the best solution to this is. The Russians just seem hell bent on this craziness. I don't know.
I don't
Uh,
either.
I
There
will
has been
quick. Go ahead.
well, there has been talk. There's been there is a movement within Russia of Russians fighting and not quite having the same success that, like, say, the Wagner group had back in the spring, where they marched, halfway
Right.
to Moscow. But they've been attacking Russian cities and Kursk and other areas. I don't know, and a lot of people did not like Vladimir Putin's response. The fact that it took him several hours to actually issue a response
Yep.
may have hurt him. So I wonder how that's going to go. And I think he'll probably respond by being extra brutal, but that's how he does. So
Yep.
yeah,
Pretty crazy.
fun times.
All right.
Um,
Just telling you, Joe. Justin Fields will be the starter by week 3 in Pittsburgh, if not by week 1. All right. Let's do the news quiz.
yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Russell Wilson's
Well,
all.
I think Russell Wilson will get traded, probably by the trade deadline. I think he gets traded.
I don't know. I mean, Denver's paying $30 million for Russell Wilson to not play there.
Play for the Steelers.
Exactly.
Thanks, Denver. Broncos country. Let's ride.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably
All
his end of
right.
news quiz.
Let me share screen. CNN weekly news quiz for March 21st. So remember, as we talk about the news quiz, let me get to this screen because it's easier for everyone to see.
Saw
There.
the first question said which fruit has the most pesticide.
Yes. So let's do our context clues so we get the migrants crossing the
Yep.
river. DC's Cherry Blossom Festival in full bloom, early bloom this year. And then
I don't know what this is.
I don't know what that is. I would assume that's more migration stuff. But anyway, all right. So question number one: which fruit in the U.S. contains the most amount of pesticides? Kiwi, pineapple, strawberries, or watermelon? I'm looking at the red, so I'm gonna say either kiwi or strawberries. There's not enough green in here for me to say watermelon, though. Although there is a little
Strawberries.
green right
I'm
there.
going to guess strawberries as well. It's the biggest crash crop.
And remember, you can also answer, and I will share the answers. So we're gonna go with strawberries.
Yeah.
Strawberries, correct. Strawberries top this year's Dirty Dozen list, ranking of the fruits and vegetables contaminated by the most pesticides. Some call it pesticides. I call it flavor.
Yes. I mean, there is an interesting point to that. If you've ever tried to grow food organically, it's a huge pain in the ass.
Oh
It
yeah.
Insects
is.
are unbelievably effective at destroying your crops and eating it all for themselves.
Yeah.
So,
Wash your fruits.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
This one we know.
Question number two: which global leader secured a fifth term in office this week? We just talked about him. The choices are
Mm.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, French President Emmanuel Macron, or the correct answer, Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The breakdancer slash bear rider slash
Hockey
hockey
scores 8
extraordinaire.
goals.
Oh my God, that's the best game ever.
Oh, I still wonder what happened to the guy that put the rug out early
Oh my
that he
God.
tripped on and fell on his face. I probably was shot immediately, but maybe still in some kind of Siberian prison.
Right.
There was a goaltender last year that was trying to leave the Russian hockey league, Flyers prospect, and he got sent to Russian prison
Yep.
because he tried to leave. And I wonder what happened to him. I hope he got out.
Yeah, I don't know either. The crazy thing about that fall, and I just rewatched it right now, is that you see some of the guys like see that it's going to happen, and they like try to skate ahead and try to stop him and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Oh,
Anyway,
and watching him score the goals, you're like,
that's also crazy, right? He's playing against some of the best players in the world. Right? Ovechkin's in that game.
yeah, Sergei Fedorov, Ovechkin, like just
Yep.
top flight,
Gatsa.
Russian talent,
Yep.
and they're. It's like when, and I hate to say it, it's like when the special kid, the sick kid, gets to run out on the field in a football game, and the guys pretend like they're going to try and tackle him, and he scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what this is when you watch so Google Vladimir Putin hockey
Yeah.
game and watch the magic happen there.
Yeah. I mean, I will say he can skate. He's not terrible, but
I mean, yeah, but he
he's
wouldn't.
yeah, he's not anywhere near NHL caliber. Like, I mean, he could play like at a seventh grade level, which I think is, better than a lot of kids.
Yeah,
Probably not seventh grade Russian level, actually,
no.
now that I think about it.
No.
It's pretty crazy. Anyway,
All right,
oh
question
boy.
number 3. Roughly how many migrant encounters occurred at the U.S.-Mexico border last year? 50,000, 250,000, 500,000, or 2.5 million?
It's always one of the extremes. So I like
Yeah.
2.5 million.
Yeah, I think so as well. AJ, what do you think?
It is always one of the extremes.
Yeah, I
So
think it's something like 30,000 a day. So,
Yeah. High periods, yes.
yeah.
Yep, there are around 2.5 million migrant encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, remember, guys get sent back all the time. They come back, so it's not 2.5 million coming across. It's probably, I would say, probably closer to 1.5 million, maybe individual, maybe even less.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2.5 million migrants encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border last year. The budget that was passed this weekend gives ICE the most money it's ever had.
Yep.
Oh,
It's crazy that the Republicans are going to replace the speaker too.
oh
Majority's
well,
down to one.
Hmm.
crazy and Republicans.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a match made in heaven.
yeah.
Um, especially the person that brought the motion.
Yep.
All right, which state will soon be blanketed by a rainbow of wildflowers? Arizona, California, Nevada, or Utah?
I'm
I'm gonna
going to
say
guess.
California.
I was going to guess Arizona because I think it's one of those desert like bloom because they
I
got
think.
rain and they don't normally get rain.
Well, I thought that's why I'm saying California because it got that just massive amount of rain this winter.
Yeah. All right, AJ, you got to break the tie here.
I don't know any of those states, nor am I moving to any of those states. So,
All right. All right.
okay, what
Let
did you say?
let's be racist and look at the people in the photo and
Oh
decide what
God,
state it is.
there are Hispanic people in both.
There are no Hispanic people in California. Los Angeles means Los Angeles is. Okay.
Uh,
I think Arizona, but let's see if somebody in the audience wants to chime in.
yes, anybody in the audience, please help us out because
And
we
I
are.
would also take Nevada. I don't think California has enough desert, and I think it's one of
Oh,
those desert in the bloom things.
oh no, like like
Eastern
there's
California, like where it borders Nevada.
yeah, Eastern California,
Yeah, and where it
especially
borders
the southern
Arizona
part.
too. Yeah, there's some of it, but I just think Arizona's more. But could be California. Janice,
Okay, I've decided
what do you think?
Arizona.
All right,
Yeah, I told you. All right. Son of beach sheep. That's from
all right, all right.
Stripe.
Question number 5: which tech company received $8.5 billion grant from the White House this week?
I don't know, but it's a terrifying thing
Intel,
to say.
Texas Instruments, Microsoft, or Nvidia?
Can't be Texas Instruments.
Wait,
My guess
why?
is going to be Microsoft.
Yeah. My guess is it's the company that's named after Donald Trump's dick.
It's funny. All right.
Oh, Intel.
Wow.
Do I have to make that sound? That dun, 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 dun?
Nah, you did it once already.
All right.
It's
Wow.
interesting. I
It is wafer thin.
yeah, it's a mixed feeling. I don't think that the government needs to do that.
Microchips.
On the other hand, AI is so phenomenal. Like I use it all the time now.
Yeah.
Um,
There's so much pressure within the government
yeah.
to do it, but not do it.
Well, the thing about it is that I mean there really is there's an
There's a
arms
security
race.
of
There's a real arms race in terms of
yeah,
AI as well.
and
Um,
there's security aspects with doing AI, how plugged it is to elsewhere. Um, but yeah, that yeah, that's been
that's
a big topic and a lot of pushback on actually doing it. So,
yeah.
all right, question number 6: during which month are the Paris 2024 Olympics set to begin? May, July, September, or November?
I mean it's the Summer Olympics, so it's the Northern Hemisphere. So I think July. They do around Bastille Day. That's my
Yeah, I know
guess.
July in Europe is kind of miserable though.
Well, but August everybody's gone,
Yeah,
and September it's too late.
I wonder
Wake
if
me up when September ends. Right?
yeah, I mean if it depends
Do you
on
know that's
where.
about his dad dying?
I did not know that.
Huh,
Yes.
Wow.
Now you know.
All right.
and
I
knowing's
don't know
half the
this
battle.
question, but I know that.
Summer has gone away. Innocent. Dun, dun, That's
All
all I know.
right,
We say July.
all right, let's say July.
Chuck also says July. I mean,
Yay.
I volunteered that for you, Chuck.
All right, opening ceremony first to be held along a river is scheduled for July 26th. So technically, it's July and August. For the most part, it's going to be in August. Those things last what two and a
2
half
weeks.
weeks.
2 weeks.
So yeah,
Yeah,
most
and normally
most
the
of it would
French
be in
shut
August.
down for August.
Yeah. If you're going to take a vacation in Europe, do not do it during August.
Yeah.
Most places in Europe are shut down. People are going to their vacation homes and stuff like that. Stuff that they don't, they have that we don't here in the United States. So,
Yeah.
all right. Question number 7: which state passed legislation this week that would prohibit diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at public schools and universities?
It's
I do
got to be
know.
Alabama, right?
Yes, it was Alabama. Interesting thing. The NAACP has come out because Florida did it last year.
Yeah.
And Florida, the University of Florida got rid of their DEI program. They're actually telling African American athletes to not go to universities in Florida as long as they have this program in place. Um, Denying them the cream of the crop athletes, I think
You
would
know,
be an interesting
it's
premise
it's a,
to stop this.
it's an interesting thing. There's a similar movement right now going on with anti-Semitism on college campuses, and there's a movement saying, you know what, Jewish students, Jewish professors, and Jewish donors should stay away from Harvard, MIT, places like that.
Yeah, what is it? The BDS?
Well,
Is that for BDS?
BDS is different from what's been going on in these
Oh,
other
okay.
places. BDS, the boycott, divest, and stupidity, is a different issue. I mean, it's also similar, but it's different from the rampant anti-Semitism that you're seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen what's going on college campuses right now. It's just like, I mean, what the hell are we thinking here?
Well, I
Like,
mean, the thing
why are
is,
you targeting some kid that maybe is from Bed-Stuy in New York that you know made
it's
it
the
to a
problem.
college campus that has nothing to do with what's going on in Gaza?
It's well, it's the problem is first of all, this idea of intersectionality, that
Yeah,
all oppressed people are somehow allied with each other. But you know, there are people who are oppressed for the situation is not the same for everybody, right? I mean, the best you can say about it is like, there are American Indians, Native Americans uh, have a bad lot here. They've been screwed over and over and over again.
oh yeah,
Um, the idea that we would say that because of that, their plight is exactly the same as African Americans or women or anything like that actually degrades all of those things. You're not necessarily
one size
alive.
fits all. Never
Exactly.
fits anybody.
Doesn't
Like
work.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Now, I
Stop it. I think Democrats are paying the price as far as electoral politics goes by continuing to pursue
yeah,
intersectionality. I think the more that they do
intersectionality.
that,
And then the thing is that there is stuff, DEI as a goal is a good idea. As a
yeah,
government policy is terrible, because when you force people to do things, they automatically resent it and get against it.
sure,
Why are you forcing me to do this thing?
sure.
DEI is, yeah, I mean, it's something that
But I
we
also get.
all,
I mean, yeah, if it's a volunteer thing, that's great. But I also get the idea that left to their own devices, that some of these universities will not
right.
will
But it,
will will discriminate. Will
but that's where it becomes okay to call them out, like what the NAACP is doing right now,
yes,
or something else. A friend of mine works for This is interesting. For you, she is an NP at a very famous hospital in Denver. And their DEI requires, they are required in work to once a month go to a meeting where they have two caucuses. They have the people of color caucus and the white caucus. And she has to be in the white caucus. And she's like, I don't identify with that. She's like, I identify as, a hippie lesbian and don't identify as white. And they're like, well, that's just your privilege talking because blah blah blah. I'm like, man, that's a pretty shitty place when
Yeah, that
your
is
job
weird.
requires something like that. It's a
Interesting.
tough call.
Yeah. All right. Question number, what is it? 8. Moving along here. Which event this week was celebrated around the world? The winter solstice, the summer solstice, the spring equinox, or the autumn equinox? I like the word equinox better than solstice, but it
Well, it's interesting
Spring.
because equinox obviously means equal nighttime. One of the things that's happening right now, and nobody is talking about it, is global brightening. I've been keeping track of it, and the days there's more sunlight every day. Nobody's doing anything about it. Mainstream media isn't covering it. People are just like hiding it. But global brightening is happening.
wake
So
up, people.
exactly, sheeple, wake up, sheeple. It's the
Shake up,
spring
weeple.
equinox.
All right. Yes, first day of spring. Uh, I'm happy. I know some people like AJ not as happy about the spring, springing the plant bukkake that we are
I
all
want to go
dealing
back
with.
to Colorado.
Mm,
Yeah. Um,
soon,
but yeah, this is the Japanese cherry blossoms there in DC. If you're ever in DC, March, uh, it's actually much earlier than it usually is. A
right?
lot of
It's almost
the
done now this
blooming.
year,
Yeah, they're almost done.
and they're going to
So
tear up 137 trees afterwards.
ugh, for what?
They have to do some landscaping renovation. Essentially, the stuff by the shore is corroding, and they need to redo the wall.
Okay.
So
Well,
they,
that
it's.
sucks. I hope they move them rather than cut them down
I'm
and
not sure
destroy them.
exactly what's going to do. I think they're going to bring in 137 George Washingtons, and
Just drop them down. All right.
exactly,
Okay. Um, but yeah, if you ever get a chance to see the Cherry Blossom Festival, we saw it the first year we were in DC, and it's absolutely amazing.
it's pretty
Um,
cool.
Thankfully, I'm not allergic to those trees, so I was able to survive. My wife is allergic to pretty much everything, so she was all loaded up on Zyrtec.
Yeah, same.
Number
All right,
nine,
question
number
number
nine,
9.
number nine.
Driver 9, take a break. Stocks soared this week as investors cheered the Federal Reserve's decision to keep interest rates unchanged. How many rate cuts are still expected this year? 3, 5, 6, or 9? I don't think
It's going to
there's
be the
an
extreme. I think it's going to be three.
yeah, I mean,
I think they only meet
'cause
quarterly anyway.
yeah. Yeah.
I will say the S&P is up 34% this year. It's insane, insane.
Yeah.
I don't.
Everything's up.
I don't understand. Well, I mean, I guess I do. You know what it is? I think that AI is sort of baked into
Oh,
people's
yeah.
reasoning at this point in time. Just like in the Industrial Revolution, uh, the world suddenly became wealthier as machines stood up and allowed us to produce more things. Same thing happened in the communications revolution as computers came online. The world became significantly wealthier. AI is going to be the same way.
Yeah.
It's going to do so much stuff.
So we're doing 3.
Yeah, I like three.
Correct. Federal Reserve officials anticipating cutting rates 3 times this year, even though inflation is above the Fed's 2% target. All right. Question number 10 for 8 out of 10 this week. According to the 2024 World Happiness Report, what is the world's happiest country? Oh, I know this one.
Well, I mean, I can't
And
see what the
it's
bottom answer is, but
Japan, Costa Rica, Ireland, or Finland.
so I'm looking at the picture, and the picture makes me think Finland. However, if you were to ask me which is the drunkest country in the world, and I had to pick from those four, it's an easy guess. So I'm going to go with Ireland. But
You would be incorrect.
is it Finland?
It is Finland.
Yeah.
Finland's usually in the top 2 or 3 of this list. For the
We
first
dropped
time,
out of the top 20.
yeah, for the first time ever, the United States dropped out of the top 20 of this list, and
Wonder
yeah, I
why.
kind of understand that,
I think. I think.
especially with
What
the
could be
election
different?
coming up.
Yep.
Weird.
Yeah,
Finland, Finland, Finland.
that's a
A
pretty
country
building.
where I'd quite like to be. So close to Russia. So far from Japan.
All right, we got 8 out of 10. Not bad, not bad at all. Especially when you guys messed up that
California, Arizona one.
Arizona call.
The flowers.
Yep.
I was right. I
You
just want
were
the
right.
record to reflect that I was right.
I like the fact that you're
Ah,
right and you
there
make
we go.
yourself bigger than all the rest of us while you say it. So I want to mention the fact that the QR code in the top corner that people see when it says
Yes, we
sub
got a
on
few
YouTube.
QR codes.
Yeah, when it says sub on YouTube, that is not what people think it is. We are asking you to subscribe to our show. It has nothing to do with.
You don't know that, Dan.
I just followed it on my phone. Oh, I don't know where my phone is. Oh, I screwed myself.
All right,
Yes,
here.
if you use your phone and scan the QR code there on the top, it should take you to our YouTube channel, and by doing that,
Someone
you can
scanned.
subscribe.
Yep.
Oh, look at
Ooh.
that! And in fact, I get to see when people do that, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, we really appreciate people subscribing. But that's not the only QR code that we're going to talk about tonight because we got a couple that we want to talk about. So let's talk about Blue Dog Design.
Oh, right. We have
Yeah,
got political deep dive merch. Let's see. I've got t-shirts, hoodies, and Dave and I have a surprise we're coming up with.
I'm
I'm
looking
waiting
forward to
on
it.
something to be delivered, and then we will let y'all know of exciting things that are happening with Blue Dog Design. There are a couple things that are not political deep dive. Usually voting, like never vote Republican again. That's a good one. Multiple hats, and there's a few bags as well.
Do you still have pins on there? Because I got some pins from you as well.
I do have some pins on there. Just little
Uh,
little little sassy things.
Trans rights or human rights. It's always good.
Yes.
Uh, I vote as an ally. Yeah, love it. Love it. But yeah, stop by Lou Dog Design for all your political deep dive needs and other needs if you are so inclined. And let's talk about your GoFundMe.
All right. So my family, that's me and Charlie and Colin and Louie and Cheeto the cat, who you will never ever see. We are having to move to Colorado to escape Tennessee and to go to the wonderful Colorado where I'm not allergic to everything, but also the Republicans aren't extra duper crazy there
Oh,
like they are in
you got Lauren
Tennessee.
Boebert there though.
No, not really, dude. She's not doing well at all. She's not raising any good money
Yeah,
right
because
now.
she moved out of
Which
the
she even
district,
had to
right?
she had to move out of the district, and but yeah, she's polling terribly. It's wonderful. It's beautiful to watch.
Oh, good.
I won't get to vote against her
Couldn't happen to a worse
because
person.
I'll be in the wrong district, but I have been donating to her competition this entire time. So this is the first year I've donated in 2 states. Um, but no, we're going there in June. I did just get back from a trip where I went to look at apartments and find a dog park and a vet and all the goings on of new things. I don't want you to think that this money is all the money that's going towards it. I did recently get a higher paying position at my job.
Woohoo! Yay!
So I start that in the next let's see, next week. So I am like putting a lot of effort towards this too. I don't want people to think that I'm just being lazy and that's what we're doing. No, we're working on it. We're getting the house together. We're figuring it out.
It's
The biggest
self-preservation.
expenses really are just moving across the country. So that's
Yeah.
where we're at, folks. If
It's
you would like to donate, that's great. If you would like to share, that's super great too. And thank you very much for allowing me to
of course.
talk to
So
folks.
as you're watching this, you can take your phone, put the camera on, and go to the QR code, and it'll bring up a URL, and it'll take you right to that GoFundMe for you to donate if you are so inclined, and if not, please share it because we love AJ and want her to be happy and get out of Tennessee before stupid shit happens.
Even worse, stupid shit.
Or even worse, stupid shit. This is true.
Even
All
more
right.
stupid shit.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. We are going to do a free for all next week. We're going to talk about Tuvalu next week. We'll do our episode on Tuvalu. So
Tuvalu.
be
Good night,
looking out
everybody. Say good
for
night,
that.
Gracie.
Good night,
Good
Gracie.
night,
Have a good
Gracie.
one, everybody.